So everyone has heard about NaNoWriMo, right? The novel writing challenge of let's write a novel within the span of the 31 days of November. There are 31 days in November, right? Whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so I wanted to kind of do either like this video or a series of videos on me prepping for NaNoWriMo, all the things that I need to write a book, because I've always done, or what I've done a few times in the past when I've done NaNoWriMo, is use October to prep. Like, get all of the things that I need to write a book in a row, so that way when November starts, I can just go to town on the rough draft. And I say rough draft because that is what it is. You're not writing a finished product in 31 days. That is highly impossible. So it's a rough draft. It's me taking my ideas, forming them into a workable first draft. So then I can take that and draft and revision and blah, 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 blah. Let me get started on this, like the first of, I don't know, however many prep videos on what I need to get ready for NaNoWriMo. Okay, the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to open a brand new, clean Word document. See it on here? It says 0 words. And then for NaNoWriMo, I have chosen to do, sorry, I'm moving things on my desk so I can get ready. Should have done this beforehand, but didn't. I'm going to do Cinderella retelling, but she's an assassin. That's the premise, Cinderella, but she's an assassin. And I've had like this very specific idea for this book kind of in the back of my mind for a very long time. And by a very long time, I mean several years. Like, I think this originates back when I was on Twitter a lot more, and that was before Stars and Bones, really, or when the first book was kind of getting going. Because I've since kind of left Twitter for reasons. But anyway, I'm using the Cinderella, but she's an assassin premise for NaNoWriMo. And first things first, let's get rid of this awful font. Did I misspell assassin? Yes. It's assassin. My bad. And then I just want to get some of my defaults off here. Remove space after paragraph because indent. There we go. Okay. So when I start a new project, there are certain things that I need. And I've become aware of these things that I need over the course of writing so many books. But really, to start any project, I need to know first and foremost the characters. Like, that is paramount. And since we're writing a Cinderella retelling, I mean, we're going to have Cinderella herself. There's the prince character, the stepmom character, stepsister 1, and stepsister 2. I can't. There we go. And the fairy godmother. I'm making some typos because I'm actually on a new keyboard. I got one of those, I don't know if you lift it up here, one of these little creamy keyboards, and it sounds delightful. My other keyboard that I've had since at least like 2016, 17, it stopped lighting up, and I didn't know how much that would bother me until I was trying to write without like a light in my keyboard. It was just a full mechanical keyboard, so it was real clickety clanky. So after the characters, I need the world. And then really plot also after that. Oh, there's no number 4. I do miss my end button, though. I don't have an end button on this keyboard. Before, like, world building, I need to know what kind of a setting we're in. Like, are we in high fantasy, low fantasy, what kind of magic do we have? So, magic, question mark, I don't know. Like, is it going to be, are there dragons in this world? To preface this question, I write fantasy. Like, everything that I have written and published has been fantasy to some extent. I've written some gaslight fantasy, which is not, I mean, there's no like outright like magic users, but there's like a magic in the world. But most of my stuff has magic in it to some extent. So this will probably have some kind of magic in it. I just don't know what yet. But this is what this video is for. This is the prep video. We are prepping for NaNoWriMo so that we can pump out a rough draft in 31 days. Yeah. But also within the world, we need to know like what kind of economy. There we go. What kind of economy does this have? What kind of industry does this setting have? Because it's a Cinderella retelling, it's probably going to be in like a town of some sort because her stepmom is supposed to be quite wealthy. And if she's an assassin, I mean, like, what if like her stepmom is like the guild master? See, you're watching me plot this novel live. Is that not exciting? So let's come up here. Stepmom, guildmaster of the assassins. Ooh, new keyboard, okay. I'm used to having like just different keys, so like I'm not quite used to this keyboard. This is literally the third day that I've used this keyboard. So forgive the typos that are gonna happen. And then like, so with Cinderella, let's just put, I don't know, she's not gonna be called Cinderella. I don't have a name yet. That's something I'm gonna have to figure out before I start writing. I need names, and once I pick a name that feels like that character, I commit. So I can't change the main character's name without tremendous, there we go, that's the word I wanted, emotional damage to myself, okay? Also, pro writer tip, water. Drink water. Have water on your desk. Coffee is good. Love coffee. Coffee runs through my veins, but it doesn't provide the hydration necessary for proper brain function. Also, proper liver function. You should take care of yourself. Drink water. Cinderella here. Hold on. Let me get back into the zone. Assassin. Do we want her to be like the assassin or just a assassin? I feel like she should just be a assassin and assassin. Because I don't want this to feel like I'm writing a Throne of Glass, but Cinderella version. I don't really want that. Not that, because I love Throne of Glass, don't get me wrong. Back to the world where I was before I had the brain fart. Or brain blast, let's be honest, it was quite a brain fart. What kind of setting are we in? What kind of magic is there? What kind of economy are we in? What kind of industry is there? Also, what kind of religion do we have in this world? Again, because I write fantasy, these are all questions that I need to ask myself. If you don't write fantasy and all your stuff is contemporary, I don't think you need to go as in depth with these kind of questions. Because if you have a book set in 1990 Chicago, you have your setting and you can very easily Google your economy and your industry and your social issues and all those things. Speaking of, are there any social issues happening in this world? Are there any like greater conflicts? Like, is there a war goings on somewhere that is going to, affect the plot or just be kind of a background noise? Because within like all these fantasy novels that we have, the really fleshed out worlds, like things are happening in all around like the world that you have. Like just because you have one location in a fantasy novel, like things are happening in like all the kingdoms and all the countries and all like the people that are doing things. So something's happening somewhere. I can't think of anything else to go on this list right now. So we come to necessity number 3 for rough drafting, which is plot, the meat and potatoes of the story. If we weren't writing a retelling, this would not be as cut and paste. But since we are writing a retelling of Cinderella, we have Cinderella, which is really a rags to riches story. She starts out, the shit upon for her stepmother, and she rises to the role of princess, eventually queen, right? There's a ball scene in Act 3 that really acts as like the high point, I think. And if we weren't, like, again, if we weren't writing a retelling, we wouldn't necessarily have our 3-act structure. You'd have to, like, better plot. And this reason right here is because I'm doing a retelling. I'm not, like, afraid of someone stealing my idea. It's a Cinderella retelling, all right? It's not original. But I thought this would be the perfect example. I'm gonna have to take this necklace off because I keep touching it and like I can see it, like the sound go up over here. So plot: Cinderella, rags to riches, ball scene, Act 3. We have our Cinderella, who starts as an assassin, tries to kill the prince, and fails clearly. Like, that could be like our starting point where like she accepts the contract to kill the prince. Because her stepmother doesn't like her and knows that she either can't do it or won't do it. Because Cinderella, as we know, like her biggest character, it's not trait, that's what I wrote. Biggest character trait. Okay, hold on, let me go back up here to the characters. Her biggest character trait is that she is kind. Like Cinderella, like her whole thing is that she's kind, right? She is compassionate. Oh, there it was. She's compassionate. She cares. Hold on, time out. I can do a focus thing down here. This is really cool if you have Microsoft Word. I didn't know about this until like very recently, which is surprising considering how long I've had Microsoft Word. This down here where it says focus mode, woo, it takes away everything else. It's very useful for like me on here doing it this way, because now I don't have to worry about anything else being shown. So Cinderella, her biggest character trait is that she's kind and compassionate. Her stepmother, well, I guess her biggest character flaw, which is because she's the villain, her flaw would drive her. Her biggest character flaw is that she's mean and she's jealous and she lets that guide her actions. If she's the master of a guild, then ambition, I would say, is her biggest character trait. She's very ambitious and clever, because you'd have to be. What would be Cinderella's biggest flaw? If she is kind and compassionate, what would her flaw be? These are the questions you have to ask yourself when you're developing your characters. Because every character, no matter how small their role in the book is, they want something. And it is that drive to get that something that they want that pushes them forward. And their traits and their flaws are obstacles in their way. So what would Cinderella's biggest flaw be? Is that she's too kind? That feels like, no, that feels dumb. She's too trusting? Now she's an assassin. She'd have to be real skeptical. You know what? Let's come back to that, all right? Let's come back to all of this. And also, as you're going, notice how I've been jumping around. That's normal, because you think of things as you go. As the world fleshes itself out, or as you flesh out your world, your characters also get a little fleshed out with it. Like, they all build upon each other. Plot: Cinderella stars an assassin. Is Anne. Assassin, there we go. Let's just leave it like that. And she tries to kill the prince, fails. And then he, instead of like looking for her because he's in love, he's looking for the assassin who almost killed him? Or what if she starts out, is given this impossible task by her stepmother because her stepmother doesn't like her, but she doesn't really have a reason to dislike her other than she's better than her daughters, right? And she gives her this contract that she knows is going to be near impossible to do, which is kill the prince, because like the prince is like coming back from somewhere, right? And what if it's not the prince who is in the prince's position, but it's like a stand-in, like one of his guard people? And then Cinderella manages to kill the stand-in thinking that it is the prince, which no one has ever been able to do before, because Cinderella wants to prove her stepmom wrong. And then the prince wants to find the assassin responsible. I think that was a tractor going by. If you heard that big rumble roar. Oh, I did. I was like, what is that? So she kills a stand-in instead and becomes the most wanted. Right? Really, this is our inciting incident. Okay. So there are a lot of ways to structure a novel, right? There's just the good old basic 3-act structure. There's like the hero's journey, but then there's also Save the Cat structure, which I have used several times. I do prefer Save the Cat because it's a little more detailed, and it's very easy to follow the story beats to like structure the novel for pacing. However, have I always followed exactly in the structure? No, because the structure, yes, it helps you pace your novel, it helps you get to where you're going and understand why you're getting where you're going. But at the end of the day, the purpose of a book is to entertain. So as long as it's entertaining, the structure is like meh. However, if you've never written a novel before and you want to start, you want to give it a try, highly recommend looking into one of the structures to help you see the form that you need to achieve and help you get to where you're going. It's like a guideline, an outline, and it's very useful. I did not outline my first several novels. I think the first one that I really sat down and focused on an outline for was like I outlined kind of the Stars and Bones later books. Like the first, I think, 3 books, I really just kind of flew by my seat of my pants. And it really showed in editing. Every novel, I don't know if you heard the lawnmower just go by the window outside, so I paused. I might cut that out. Don't worry about it. But every novel since Stars and Bones, I really focused more on plot structure before I started drafting because it helps out in the revision process. So you don't have to focus so much on the bigger picture because you focus on the bigger picture in the outline form. So it's a lot easier to revise and draft in the later versions, if that makes sense. Now, does that mean you can't pants every novel? No, you can do what you want because every writer is different. Every writer has a different way of approaching plot structure. Every writer has a different approach to how they build a novel and how they get from point A, which is like your first spark of inspiration, to putting a finished novel on the shelf. Every writer is different. And this is just how I do it. You don't have to do it this way. This isn't the way. This isn't the only way to do anything. But this is how I do it. And I just thought it would be really cool to share that with other people so you can see exactly what I do and how I do it and how I approach a novel and what I need to get to that finished product. So for the 3-act structure, we of course have, oh, I didn't want to turn caps lock on. Hold on. We have that Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Essentially, Act 1 is the beginning. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Again, I missed my end button. Act 2 is the middle. Act 3 is the end, the climax of the novel. This is incredibly vague. I am aware, which is why, me personally, I like Save the Cat. Hi, Suze. How are you? I know, the little psychic charge went out. Yeah. Yeah, I know. How are you today? Do you need things? I know you always need things when I'm doing stuff. Yes, you do. You always need things when I'm doing stuff. No, give No, you have to hang out for a minute, okay? My train derailed. My train of thought just went off the cliff. Because I feel like it's almost too early for me to be worrying about outline. Because sometimes I will go through like Save the Cat outline before really getting into my book. And then other times I will make a very rough outline and then go to Save the Cat to better organize that outline and see what I have and what I need and what I don't need and what kind of overlaps. So let's not worry about outlining right now. There is a cobweb hanging off of my camera. Ooh. So anyway, let's focus on the 3 big things that I need, which are characters, world, and plot. So Cinderella, she's an assassin, tries to kill the prince, fails, kills a stand-in instead, becomes the most wanted criminal in the city. Right. Okay. And of course, we know there's the almost a pivotal ball scene. The ball scene. Where the prince dances with Cinderella without knowing it's her, but she knows it's him. And if we spend the whole novel with him trying to find her and her trying to find him to kill him, like they're trying to kill each other, but they don't really know what each other looks like. Ooh. So then we have Prince and... What are you looking at, Suze? The dog is judging me right now. The Prince and Cinderella spend the book essentially trying to kill each other without knowing what the other looks like. So that way they can like encounter each other throughout the story without really knowing that it's the other one. Like, ooh, what if like the prince pretends to not be a prince? Like he goes, like, he pulls like a Hannah Montana and he pretends to be like a servant of the prince or something. I mean, like they're high society. Or she pretends to be a servant in her stepmother's house. Because my first brain thought was oh, she's like a lady of the court, but she's a killer and nobody knows about it. Then I'm like, well, that is essentially the plot of Heartless Hunter. So let's have Cinderella pretend to be a servant of her stepmom. And then they encounter each other somehow. What if there's like a rebellion kind of happening? Like not like full on like riots, but like a calm, understated rebellion of people who disagree with like how the kingdom is being run, which is why Cinderella had the contract to go kill the prince because somebody wants to knock out the royal family so somebody else can step in. And what if like the big bad isn't necessarily the stepmom, but like some mysterious person of the royal family who's not really in line for the throne, but if he knocks out like the king, the queen, the prince, and somebody else, he becomes like first in line and he would be like behind everything. Big bad. And like he's in cahoots with like the stepmom. Like he's promised her she could be queen or something. Friends is a strong word, but let's go with it. Stepmom doesn't have a name yet. And we don't know who he is. Like he can be like the character that's like in the book but doesn't seem like the villain. But then it plot twist he is a villain. Woo! Spoiler alert. Appears to be a nice guy. Although not too much of a nice guy because like then you fall into that trope of like the mysterious villain is like the super nice guy that's not the love interest but that's just there for no other reason than to be a nice guy. Like there's been several books here lately that I have called the villain like from the first time they step onto the page because they just appear just to be such a nice person and they have no other purpose than to be the nice person. I'm like, you're pulling a Hans. Like he has no other purpose than to just be the nice guy. I was like that clearly he's the bad guy because there's no other bad guy present at the moment. And it could just be because I read a lot and I analyze books in a different way than just being a reader does. But anyway, so we've got our big bad villain who doesn't have a name. We have our stepsisters. Are the stepsisters also assassins? Or do they not get their dainty little hands dirty because they are above such disgusting work? Are they the pampered princesses? Or should we pull like a Cinderella 3 where one stepsister is basically her mother and has figured out that her mother has gone in cahoots with the guy that wants to be king? Her stepmother, it's not her stepmother, her mother will then be queen and that would make her a princess. And then because it's the older one who has surmised all this and she's like, oh well, my husband gets to be king, I'll be queen next, kind of a thing. Like she's already plotting like the murder of her mom so she can be queen. And then like we could do stepsister 2, the younger one, who betrays her mother in the end to be on Cinderella's side. Because there was that one, I think it was Cinderella 3, where like whatever sister some like goes back in time and does it to where the events of Cinderella never happened, but then at the end reverses everything. I feel like I have seen it, but it has been so long. I just have a very rough concept of what that movie was. Like the other sister turns nice. That's all I've got. The fairy godmother. Not a fairy, all right? Or is she a fairy? What if she's like the creepy old woman who lives in the creepy house? Like a witch woman. Like what if she's like the witch character who, has like a mind for like the old ways? What if she's like a character from like another universe or something? We can build up like a multiverse. Or am I just trying to make my books into like the next Sarah J. Maas books? I don't need to focus on these things right now. But what if she's like, because in the original Cinderella, like the fairy godmother, I'm fumbling. My brain is moving so fast, my words are having trouble keeping up. This is how I write. Like occasionally, if I am in the zone, my fingers are not keeping up on the keyboard with how my brain is processing. What if, what if like the fairy godmother is like the magic being, or she is like the connection to magic in this city, and there's magic elsewhere. Which brings up the question, if we tiptoe down here to the world section, how does this world view magic? Do they like magic? Do they hate magic? Do they fear magic? Is it something that is sought after and coveted? Like, are the witches of this world kind of far and few between, but you have all these fake witches selling like fake potions and trying to be like basically con artists because magic is so sought after? I feel like I do the whole magic is feared and hated thing a lot. That's essentially been like Stars and Bones was that way. Heart of Stone was also that way. Bloodied Crown is also that way. I think that's my Dragon Age influence coming in to where I just default to that kind of world. So to switch things up, let's say magic is coveted but rare. Witches, like real witches, are few and far between. A dying breed. Magic was once potent, has faded. So there was like an era where there was a lot of magic, but it has since kind of shrank. My Empire of Shadows project that I'm working on, where one person has the magic, it's kind of the same thing where magic is coveted, but is also kind of feared. But those with magic are kind of revered. My dog is staring at me very sadly. Little sad eyes. Probably hungry. You know, it's all been whole 2 hours probably since you've eaten. She's a sweetie pie, but we need to talk about your weight gain. You waddle a little bit. I waddle too a little bit, so I probably shouldn't say anything. What if we like magic? Like, what if we connect magic to like nature? And because we're in a city, there's very little magic. We can have like little, I can't type, pockets of hidden magic where witches dwell are filled with plants and greenery and verdant green. I really like that saying. Verdant green and velvet leaves. I really like this. That might be the title of my book right there. That is the soonest I have ever thought of a title in my entire author career. And that includes writing fan fiction, the weird poems I wrote as a junior high student. It took, I don't know what book I was in with Stars and Bones before I was like, okay, I need a title. I need a series title. And like the name of that book, like the first book is literally Thief in the Castle. Because I'm like, oh, it's a book's about a thief that goes into the castle. Boom, thief in the castle. I'm sorry, my author brain just exploded because I have I have literally never had a title for a work in progress that soon. You can't steal it. Nobody steal that title. That is my title. I have proof. I have time stamped. It is 4:50 on October 5th, 2024. My title. I'm going to Google that title later, and there's going to be like 15 books with that exact title. Anyway, so magic is like coveted. There's fake witches. These are essentially just con artists selling snake oils. So, what kind of setting? I mean, I default to high fantasy, but I also kind of default to, depending, I also really like the gas lamp setting. And I've been told by several agents within the past several months and years that there's not really a market for a gas lamp, but I really like the gas lamp setting. When done well, it's phenomenal. I mean, like most things, when done well, are very nice. But I don't know. Let's just leave high fantasy right there because I'm not entirely certain. Economy, industry, religion. In my last several books, I've really glazed over like the religion. Like I've added in very vague vanilla religions. Like in Stars and Bones, I just made up like gods that correlated to seasons, then were then connected to the elements like of the magic system that they used. Then there were like lesser gods who were like over very specific things. So I don't know like what kind of religion I want. Like, is it gonna be a little bit more like zealous? Zealous is the word I want. That word also sounded not right as soon as it came out. Zealous is the word I wanted. Because any like religion you have anywhere, there's going to be people who kind of skirt the rules. There's going to be people who use the rules to their advantage to get what they want, and there are going to be people within it who hold to those rules so tightly that they're kind of a cult. What if there is like a cult of people who do things like the old-fashioned way? Like a cult of, I said cult, and my brain kind of did the thing where it spins really fast. Like, let's say there's like a cult of people who kind of worship the magic that it once was and are trying to kind of covet the magic that still exists. But because magic doesn't really exist in the city because it needs like nature to thrive, these cults are going to be like in the woods. Living bare bones out in like the middle of nowhere with nature. I don't want to just call them hippies. Hippie witches. Social issues. Well, clearly, someone doesn't like how the kingdom is being run. Or they don't like how a greater conflict is being handled. And it could be just because I've played Dragon Age recently, just like the beginning of it, where like the Thetis kingdom where you start out, or country, I don't remember what it is, it's one of those. Like the conflict between like the king that dies in the beginning and then like the dude that kind of becomes the regent is because the king wants to ally with a kingdom that the other guy doesn't like. But then my brain just kind of fell apart after that. It's just someone doesn't like how the kingdom is being run. Big bad. Greater conflicts. Let's say there's a war happening somewhere. There's that too little too close to home right now. And you have two sides of people, and everyone thinks it should be handled differently. I don't know. Let's put war question mark with the prince. I have nothing for the prince. Before blah, 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 before I get into like writing, even in the outline, I'm going to need one very important step. Names. I don't have names for anybody right now. That's going to be something to think about because a lot of the writing process, or like the beginning process of like what we're doing here, it involves thinking and planning and trying to think of names and ideas and traits and flaws. And like I can do that sitting here staring at it, or I can do that, have that on like in the background of my brain while I'm doing something else like cleaning, taking a shower, driving to work, at work, trying to work, or while I'm playing Minecraft or another game of some sort. Because I will just be doing something and then all of a sudden I will think of a name that's just perfect for like the Cinderella character, or like a trait that's perfect for like the prince. Oh, that'll be interesting, like dynamic, or something like that. Because I can say, like, having once been a baby writer myself, and having watched all these other baby writers, start their writing journey, on TikTok or on other social media, I can see them doing things that I once did, which is focusing so much on building a character and then not focusing enough on plot and what those traits mean and how those traits translate to character development. And I mean, I did that too, like picking out theme songs for your characters and stuff. And I don't do that anymore because I realize it doesn't really matter and it doesn't help me write a book. But I mean, I'm not gonna like sit here and tell you that you can't do it because I did it also. And I understand it's just something we do sometimes. Like it's not bad, I guess it's just an observation. Let's put it that way. It's an observation that I have made. Now having, I'm not going to call it mild, even mild success, some success to a lesser degree as an author. I don't do this full time. I've not made any bestseller lists, but I've had what I consider mild success, okay? And other people might disagree, but whatever. Everyone has a different idea of what success is and what they want out of their career and what they want to do with their story ideas. My goal with every single book that I write is to have a marketable, sellable, readable book. And what does all those mean? To have a marketable book, a book that I can market easily. Like I know my market now. When I first started out, didn't. The high fantasy, new adult, in the same category as like your Throne of Glass, your ACOTAR, your Fourth Wing. I've used The Scarlet Veil several times as a comp by Shelby Morin. It's in that realm. It is a very easy market to be in. It's a very saturated market to be in. But there's a lot of readers in that market. I myself am a reader in that market. And so I know how to market a book. Kind of. I know how to market a book better than I did 5 years ago, put it that way. But having a readable book, as in my book is very easy to read and understand. It is my goal. My goal for readability is always to have, the readers, they can read through it. Like to have a book, my brain, I can't describe what I mean by that very well. To have a book that you forget you're reading. There we go. To have a book that you're reading and you just keep going and you just keep going, then all of a sudden it's been 3 hours. You're like, oh snap, I've been reading for 3 hours. I didn't know I've been reading for that long. That is a wonderful goal to hit. I don't know if I hit that L in that word the first time. Because I am constantly hunting that same feeling with the books that I read. The books that I forget that it's a book that I fall into, that I'm reading into the wee hours of the night, and it's not until I look over the clock and I realize it's midnight, it's, oh snap, I have to get up in 5 hours. Whoopsie. But I think I'm going to cut this prep video here because I've already been going for an hour. For starting an outline of a book, this is great. No, it's not, a finished draft. No, we can't do that in an hour. But every book's got to start somewhere, no matter how big or how small. Every single book that's ever been written has started out as an idea. I can remember starting out trying to write my first novel and being so overwhelmed at not knowing what to do next, and not knowing if what I was doing was good enough. And I didn't quit, which is, I think, is the very most important part. The number one advice I can give to a new author or someone who wants to be an author is don't quit, don't give up, no matter how hard it gets, because it will get hard. You will cry yourself to sleep at night sometimes, and that's okay. You will fall down and you will not want to get up, but you get up. You keep going. You get that rejection letter and you keep going. It's okay. You don't have to write every day. You don't have to write every week. You have other things to do. This is just something we do for fun, and life responsibilities do come first. What I'm going to do for the next week, because I probably won't do another one of these until next weekend, I'm going to keep thinking about names for my characters. I'm going to try to figure out a little bit more about the fairy godmother, kind of how magic works in this world, what kind of religion we could have. Because look at any religion in the world, and they're very overly complicated, with a lot of rich history and interconnection with like world history and stuff. And also, more like social issues and conflict, like what's going on in this world where someone wants to like knock the royal family out. Like something's clearly happening that they don't like what's happening. And then to think a little bit more about the plot itself, because like for me the plot of a book is very important. Like yes, there's going to be like romance. Cinderella is going to fall for the prince and the prince is going to fall for her, but then they don't know that it's each other is the one they're trying to kill, then they're going to have to come to terms with that and figure it out by the end of the book. And what I usually end up doing is like trying to think along the lines of like Save the Cat, like all the story beats that I need. and try to figure out like what could I do with those story beats. But this is an excellent start to a novel. And if you want to stick around with me to see where this goes, and then join me in November for some live writing sprints, maybe even on like Saturday afternoons, maybe even around this time, and we can all see how many words we can get in like an hour or something. We can have some music playing. I can have my oil thingy here in the background. If you see that steam right there, that's what that is. We can all have our water. I can announce water breaks so we can make you drink your water and all that fun stuff. If so, subscribe for more like things like this, for like book things, writer things. I also play some games if that's what you're into. If not, cool, whatever, don't care. But yeah, if you want to stick around for more like how to write a novel, if you want to stick around with me to write this specific novel, we might be able to just watch this novel from like this starting point right here all the way to finished book I can put on my shelf. Wouldn't that not be awesome to be able to watch the novel from here to like having the book in your hands? That's always just the amazing feeling to hold it. Anyway, I'm rambling. Gonna cut this video here for realsies this time, and I will see you later. I am so glad we have decided to mow the backyard right behind my room when I'm recording. This is like the third time this has happened. Where they're like, it's like when I hit record, it sends out just this psychic message to everyone that's like, I need to be in the yard. It's like the same thing when you go in to like warm up your coffee. Suddenly, like there's just some signal that goes out to everyone in the house that they also need to be in the kitchen at the same time.